Hi, everybody. So today I wanted to talk about craniosacral therapy. And I'm very often asked what therapy is and how it works. And I wanted to describe it to you, show it to you so it kind of makes a little bit more sense. So I want you to envision the human body as a jelly baby with sticks in, or a jello that is holding the whole system together. There is no start, there is no finish, there is no division within the parts. So even though you are taught through anatomy that you have your organs, you have your bones, you have your muscles, I want you to envision the human body as just one whole system with no division. But this whole system has pathways that are created by membranes or by a crystalline web. So this crystalline web is fascia. So the entire system is being held by this crystalline web that is made of collagen and plasma. It's basically liquid. And this liquid is moving continuously and changing continuously. It's changing consistency from a little bit more solid to a little bit more liquid. Due to various different things. One, your breath. Two, how you move. Three, whether there's any adhesions, any areas that are stuck in your system. So within all that, within that fascial, crystalline, watery system, there is a pulsing of electricity that's coming from your central nervous system. So now I want you to envision these roots or branch-like systems, just like the trees, that are not only in the same shape as the trees, so you have like a big root and then little tiny, tiny, tiny pieces that continue throughout the system. But this kind of root system is moving and pulsing continuously. And this root system is not only moving and pulsing continuously, but it also has its own liquid because the cerebral spinal fluid lives within the central nervous system, or actually the other way around. The central nervous system lives within the cerebral spinal fluid. And the cerebral spinal fluid is literally pumping up and down your spine and being created by the ventricles in your brain. Now, add on top of that the layer of how you react by looking, by hearing, by sensing, by tasting to your environment. So how you react will cause your central nervous system to release a hormone, whether it's cortisol, whether it's adrenaline, whether even if it's a female hormone, testosterone, whatever it may be, it's being released by your brain. Now, when that happens, it goes into the system and it may stay in the brain or it may go down the system or alert the different organs what they should be doing. So, for example, your brain might release cortisol, which then tells your gut that something's going on. And then that will increase or decrease whatever chemical reactions are happening in your system. So I want you to visualize, as we're moving, as you're even watching this video, the system is continuously in fluctuation, is continuously moving in restriction, contraction, and expansion due to your breath, but it's also continuously moving internally. The organs are moving because of the pulsing of your cardiac system, of your central nervous system, of your lymphatic system, but so is the central nervous system is moving, and your whole sensory system is telling your brain what it needs to be functioning and what it needs to be doing at the time. Craniosacral therapy connects to your system, your fluid system, in a way that no other modality can do. Now, I want you to envision somebody lying down with the practitioner's hands on their head or on their body. Let's imagine that the practitioner's hands are on their head. And now I want you to envision that your head, your cranium, is made of various different pieces. If you look at the different colors, this cranium is designed in such a way that it's literally made of different pieces because that is how we are made. So I want you to envision these sutures, all of these sutures, have their own capillaries. So therefore they go inside the cranium and they are pulsing and they are moving, causing the actual pieces to pulse and move. Now also the cerebral spinal fluid that is inside of the brain is also expanding and moving ever so slightly, very, 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 very slightly. So, but it's allowing movement for the brain so it can float, and it's allowing the cranium to be able to move ever so slightly. Now, I want you to envision this little chap covered in skin and in muscle and in the lymphatic system and all your veins. And now visualize all of that water, all of that liquid, all of that plasma surrounding all the pieces of the puzzle. Now, as it surrounds the pieces of the puzzle, your eyeballs are in here. They're attached to nerves that go deep inside, which then attach to your brain. So this is why I'm saying think about it as one whole piece, one whole unit, the human body and the human being. Now, as you consider this human body, human being as one whole piece, I want you to think of a river with little stones at the bottom. So depending on how much rain comes, depends on how the little stones move. Now, the little stones could be equivalent to chemical reactions, could be equivalent to memories. It's basically the debris that it's in our system. And that debris is our memories created by our reactions, therefore created by chemical reactions. So as our system, our liquid is moving up and down, the craniosacral therapist will hold on to the head or will hold on to the spine. And we use our fingers, our fingertips, because our fingers are incredibly sensitive, and you can train your fingers just like a blind person can train themselves to read and to feel. A practitioner that does craniosacral therapy can also train their fingers and their palms, their sensory sense of self, to see what's happening with the system. So anatomically, I'm not talking about energetically yet, but anatomically, you can use your hands in different positions. We're trained to use the hands in different positions so as to guide how the cranium could be moving. So we can help it move. If I lift this up, this section moves ever so slightly this way. This section moves ever so slightly this way. So I'm hugely exaggerating, but it's kind of like an opening up like this. Same with the sides, they tend to open up like this. As I say, it's minor movements, but they do move in those directions. And if the fascia is causing a misalignment of the cranium, it's going to be causing a misalignment of the, I'm making him fall apart, will be causing a misalignment with this little guy here, which is the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone is the bone that holds your hypothalamus, your pituitary. Basically, it holds the main glands of your hormones. It also is where your the ventricles of the cerebral spinal fluid sit. So this bone is also the bone that touches every single bone on the cranium. Every single bone, front as well as the bottom, is touched by the sphenoid bone. Now, this little guy moves in different directions. He can move like this. He can move like this. He can move like this. So depending on how he's moving, depends on the impact of the cranium and the membranes inside of your skull. Therefore, it impacts the actual brain itself. Now, as a practitioner, we are trained to feel the rhythm of the tide. And the rhythm of the tide is your own system's waters, how they move up and down. Now, when there is an imbalance, when there is a dysfunction, a misalignment in the bone, in the cranium, in the actual system itself, we can feel it in our hands. And when we feel it in our hands, just like you would putting your fingers in a river and guiding the water to change ever so slightly and ever so slowly the actual debris of the bottom of the sea or the bottom of the river, we can do the same with our hands. Now, if you think of how the system is continuously moving, how the membranes are sitting within this, I want to call it a jelly type substance, even though it's not jelly, but it's a little bit more solid than water. It's a type of plasma. So if you consider that by just touching, just holding, even if it's just holding a hand, if you're holding, for example, if I'm holding my wrist here, I will be impacting the blood supply. I will be impacting the lymphatic system. I will be impacting the central nervous system. I will be impacting the fascial system. So it can potentially cause a very small short circuit of the actual waters, the tide, which will then be able to move something or have some sort of reaction. And that is how craniosacral therapy works. It's very, very subtle, but very, very deep. And if people are suffering from jaw pain, for example, or let's say they clench at night, or you clench during the day because you're very stressed. If you clench, now envision all the muscles that are held within the mouth, inside, how they will be pulling potentially upwards or potentially downwards into the throat. They will be pulling the system. So if you are clenching here, this might be having issues. The back of your neck could be having issues. If the back of your neck is having issues, your brainstem could be having issues. If your brainstem starts having issues, then potentially the vagus nerve could be having issues because the vagus nerve is in the brainstem and speaks to your organs. So something as simple as not breathing or clenching too much could cause anxiety, it could cause depression, it could cause panic attacks. So I want you to consider how simple craniosacral can be used to reset or to aid in the release of the jaw, in the release of the sinus issues. If you've got headaches that come from the back of your neck, even headaches that are coming from your hormones, because if you consider that if this little guy is not happy, it could be impacting your hormones and how the hormones are released, how the hormones are spoken to by the brain. So if that is the case, you need to be able to find a way to connect to this part of the brain or this part of the cranium so as to reset or support your hormones so that you don't get headaches, as an example. So craniosacral can be used for 1,000,001 things. It's an incredibly beautiful modality and very, very effective for all ages and all conditions. I use it very much when I work with oncology patients. They suffer from severe anxiety or panic attacks, or they're having the reaction, especially in women, the reaction of going straight into the menopause, and that's quite hardcore to the system. So this is a very gentle way to support the patient without an invasive procedure, without any drugs. Now, that's one example. Headaches is another example. Chronic pain, back pain is another example, because all of those conditions are impacted by the central nervous system and the fascia. So if we can gently manipulate and maneuver both, we can really aid in many, many different conditions. I hope that you found this video helpful. I will be making more, and please subscribe or join my Patreon site to get further educational videos. Take care. Bye-bye.